Welcome to a Nothing from Nothing production. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Christopher with Bill Turley, and this is the Junction Podcast, a podcast about growing up in Brooklyn in the 1970s and 80s. We're hoping to protect the names of the innocent as well as the extremely guilty, and there were plenty of those. Well, here goes. Hello, everybody. I'm with Bill Turley. My name is Mark Christopher, and I think that this particular unique area that we grew up in is worthy of at least some entertaining podcasts. So what we'll do is we like to describe to you what the Junction was and what that area was to us. So, Bill,
Well, we both grew up in this neighborhood in Brooklyn. Which, if you look on a map of Brooklyn, it's right in the heart. And, we always kind of felt like we were in the shadow of New York City, in the shadow of Manhattan, And the Junction, for those of you who don't know Brooklyn geography, it's where Nostrand Avenue and Flatbush Avenue cross. Usually you hear about the Junction, you're thinking about some rural place in, Tennessee or Georgia or something. But this is our own Junction, And when you said, hey, I'm going to the Junction, you knew exactly where it was going.
And the thing I remember is, and for those of us who are a lot older, not me, Bill and I are kind of young, but Flatbush Avenue stop was right there at the Junction.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Flatbush Avenue stop, and it's the famous thing where Lucille Boyle, right? Remember she gets lost with the trophy on her head?
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Flatbush Avenue.
It's the last stop on the IRT, or the first stop on the IRT, where how everyone. And it's the beginning of the Green Line bus that takes you down to the beach, to the Rockaways.
That's right.
Easy Point.
You want to go down and have a couple of beers?
Exactly. Yeah, And, the Junction was also a place where, like, every presidential candidate had to go, and press the flush with the mostly Democrat voters in Brooklyn, right?
That's right. That's right.
I know. I remember hearing stories about, I think my younger brother, Tom, actually got lost at the Junction when Lyndon Johnson came to, it was in like 1964. We'll have to get him from the show to talk about that. But yeah, my grandmother took off with it. They got lost.
They get lost in the Junction. And you got to remember also, it was not the best of neighborhoods,
Yeah, I spent my very, very formative years there, just like a block or two off the Junction on Glenwood Road, New York Avenue.
I was on Brooklyn Avenue.
I think that's right.
Brooklyn Avenue.
You were Avenue 8 at one point, too.
I was Avenue 8.
Yeah.
But running away from the rent man.
My dad, my father used to call it the lunatic fringe of Brooklyn.
Yeah, well, it was. It has quite a mosaic, a boiling pot of, we hung out mostly with Irish Americans, Italian Americans, Jewish Americans, occasionally Black Americans. But that was really the four major groups, right?
Latinos, too.
Latino, that's right. But I didn't have any Latino friends, I don't think. Yeah. I saw a couple of beautiful Latino girls in school. But no, I know we'll keep that. But yeah, no, it was a melting pot, and I had this theory about what it was like back then, specifically the folks that grew up before us in the 50s and 60s, right?
Right.
For them, they had this, a tree grows in Brooklyn. It's beautiful back then. I'm telling you, when I grew up, it was beautiful. And then O'Malley goes over there and sells off the Dodgers. He sells the Dodgers off. And when he sold the Dodgers off, Brooklyn went down.
I think that the Dodgers left Brooklyn the year before.
Really, 1958?
I was born in 1958. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to admit when I was born.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a tragedy, moving the Dodgers.
Well, when the Dodgers went, right, and I've heard this story, I still hear it from my father-in-law. When the Dodgers went, it was all of a sudden, you lost Brooklyn Eagle newspaper. That was the first thing to go. That was a great paper. That's a great fucking paper, I'm telling you. It's just great. Had all the information about Duke Snyder in the back, everything you wanted to know. And then Ebbingers didn't go until like the early 70s. They were around. Listen, don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
You're being a revisionist already. We're like 5 minutes into this. No, I think Ebbingers was around for at least into the 70s. And I remember the green and brown cake boxes. And they had a couple of outlets in that area.
Yeah, and apparently they had the best goddamn chocolate in the world.
They did.
The
blackout cake, that's what everybody...
Oh, it's great. It's unbelievable. You sit and eat on that for weeks. But then after the Ebbingers went, and then just the way that people had to commute, and just the city had sort of, there's no way to wipe out the ingrained seediness, to be honest, of Nourishing and Flatbush.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was seedy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Bars everywhere, you know.
yeah.
You had that famous, the Junction bar, which had, and had two entrances to it.
Yeah. One in the front, one in the back.
And there was another. And what was the one next one? Shanahan.
Shanahan, that's right.
Yeah.
You know?
All these, yeah, they were pretty seedy places.
Oh, yeah. And it was, God, it was like, I lived there for so long that I never had a problem, but I went back when I was soft in the middle and very corporate in my 40s, and I got a little nervous. Like,
Yeah.
a little nervous. It's like 9 o'clock at night getting off the Flatbush train station, and, you know, it was a little rough around.
And you know, just a short walk from there was that Institute of Higher Learning, which I attended.
As well as
Brooklyn College of the
Brooklyn College.
Yeah, it's a beautiful campus, buddy.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
But, you know, I think about Brooklyn in terms of like how, you know, the people that we grew up around, you know, these were the people that essentially made the city run. You know, they got up every morning and went to work, and, you know, like, I mean, the city of New York itself was a huge employer, right? You had the police department, the fire department, the sanitation department. And then, you know, like my dad was a teacher. He worked for the Board of Education, you know? So, I mean, these are the people who were policing the street, putting the fires out, collecting the garbage, teaching the kids. And then, you know, Wall Street, the financial district, was a huge employer for Brooklyn. And how many people did you know in your neighborhood that worked down around Wall Street? Yeah.
A decent amount, but I remember having, and this is for a future episode, but I had 5 choices. It's it. You grow up on, you got 5 choices. You're going to work for maybe 6, right? Con Ed, the phone company, New York Telephone, right? Con Ed, New York Telephone. Then there was cops, firemen, garbage, sanitation. Yeah. Sanitation. You could work for sanitation. And it was like civil service was venerated in a way that was, you know, it was the way everybody had to go.
Right.
You were atypical to do what you and I did.
Don't forget Brooklyn Union Gas.
Brooklyn Union Gas. I worked for that for 30 years.
My Uncle Eddie worked for the gas company. Yeah.
You know, he dropped dead a day before his pension, I heard.
Oh,
No, sorry, Uncle Eddie.
okay. So, you know, we're talking about civil service jobs. There was a guy on our block, like, hey, who was always telling us, what you guys got to do is go down and take the test for the customs agency. To be customs agent. That was it. Yeah, you know. And he would always, and my friends, we don't crack up, you know. We go, yeah, you know, he's the, you know, I got the papers in the trunk of my car, you know, because he was a customs agent. That's right. The best job around. He worked for the federal government, a great pension and all that, you know, and it was really funny. Like, there was an older generation, like they were like 10 years older than we were, you know, on our block, and his son was in that generation, and he would always say, you know, I told these ham balonies years ago, you know, take that federal test. Did they listen to me? No, they wanted to.
And they're all fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, those kids, they're all fucked up. They're mixed up kids on drugs.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what it was, since we're segueing into it, I mean, basically, I have nothing but empathy and love for now the position I'm in, and then, you know, what they were in. So their first generation, when my grandparents were shell-shocked landing in America from Ireland, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Shell-shocked, you know. My grandfather worked till he had a massive stroke. My grandmother went a little nutty, right? And then the next generation didn't have a lot of the tools to really. I mean, your parents were. Well, obviously I knew them. They were wonderful. My parents were wonderful too, but they struggled to assimilate into.
Oh yeah.
Into that existence in these small little houses or small apartments in Brooklyn, New York. You know, and it was a kind of it was at best lower middle class, or I would almost say poor. I mean, maybe not in your case, but in my case.
Well, you know, I mean, we were surviving, you know.
Yeah. And survival was something that when you made an atypical choice, as my father had, he became a travel agent, went to the travel industry, basically so he can meet women and have a good time. That's basic. He went, I'm going to go over there because I could meet women, you know. But, you know, my mother had to work take that subway. And it's like the thought of my mother taking the subway in to Manhattan.
Yeah.
You know, now in hindsight, I feel, though I was a little kid, I feel, oh my God, it was brutal.
To put it all in perspective, though, like, I mean, you could get to Manhattan on a good day, I'm saying, in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
That is a good part of it.
Yeah. And we took advantage of that, and about 10 years, being able to get into the city real quickly.
Well, partying in the city is one other thing.
Slippery way. It's like John Lennon book over there.
I think, you gave it. We could stop this.
Wait, no, keep going.
No, that's not your book.
Wait. Happy birthday, Bill. Wait a second. There's a dedication.
I stole that.
I admit you stole.
You lent it to me and I didn't return. Is that stealing?
Right.
You're
Mark.
I wanted you to forget about it.
You were a notorious album thief.
No,
there was a place called Titus Oaks in Brooklyn. They sold used records.
Yeah.
And I just remember when me and Tom would confront you about an album. I bought that at Titus Oaks. I got that. I remember distinctly buying that. It's like, no.
Yeah. And then you'd open it up. The one thing it did open up, Curtis Hill's National and 4-Way Street,
right.
And a bunch of seeds fell out.
Right.
From rolling marijuana.
Yeah, I remember that bullet.
That wasn't you. Other than you. You weren't involved in any of that.
No, of course not.
Any of that shenanigans. But I remember I was trying to figure it all out. And, I think all existence has the sort of binary aspect in that there's good and there's bad, right? The good parts of Brooklyn gives you a spidey sense, like an innate spidey sense. You're aware of your surroundings, right? You're aware of potential issues, and you're also aware of you will let yourself be pushed only to a certain point. It's hard to walk over a person who grew up like we grew up. Eventually, you basically just say, okay, you had a nice guy for about 10, 15 minutes. Now you pissed me off. I'm going to knock you out.
That's true, yeah.
And we were tough guys for gangs. So we were more the cerebral Beatles, Stones, Dylan, Led Zeppelin music fans. But I like that I was able to carry that in, like in business, and there were periods I had to pull that into myself, and because you get really soft and corporate and live in Long Island, and I called it, I got soft in the middle, and then somebody would push in a business sense, and I was like, well, I'm not putting up. All of a sudden, muscle memory would emerge, and I'd go, I'm not putting up with this guy. He's not going to pull one more shit on me. I'm going to corner him, and I'm going to tell him, step the fuck back.
And the Brooklyn comes out.
The Brooklyn comes out, and then he goes, oh, wow, we didn't know you were capable of it, because you walk around in corporate America saying, I'm from nowhere, and you look, you have that kind of demeanor.
Right.
But, for me, it was mostly a positive experience, other than the near-death experiences, which we'll cover in a different episode. But it was... I just remember it kind of in that kind of gray, cold, rainy, you might have had a more sunnier disposition than me. Cold, dark, rainy, cloudy, because that's the way it is like 8 months out of the year or 7 months out of the year. It's not quite Seattle, but the summers are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's just, now that I spent a lot of time in Florida, by the way, they give you a free walker at the Fort Myers airport.
No income tax.
No income tax down there.
No state.
What do you think we all run down there for, right? But my point is that I found it to be something I had to recover from. For me, it was a lot more than you probably, because you always said you had on straight. Me, a little bit, a little bit fucked up, right? But I had to recover and get out of there, though there are so many things about it that I love the fact it was on 36 and Quentin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Jewish deli with the best hot dogs and knishes. There was an Italian restaurant. There was a Chinese restaurant. I don't think that existed in North Carolina, let's say, or Bonita Springs, Florida.
Probably not.
And you'd go down there, and you'd have unbelievable food. And then things happened in Brooklyn first, too, right? Like, we're in that general area. I remember you used to get the comic books first.
Okay.
Like you used to get them before, they went out. I used to get the new episode of the Spider-Man, and I can't stand that shit anymore.
And you could get that at the Junction.
I got it right at the Junction.
And yeah, the Junction.
When it was coming out, I'd run up.
The Junction was where you got the Sunday paper on Saturday night.
That's right.
Right? I'm telling you, there was a newsstand there. I think it was called Shapiro's.
Yeah.
Where it was right at the Junction, right by the train station. And yeah, like you would see people down there on Saturday night getting the New York Times or the news, and just, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a song about that, right? Yeah. The Sunday paper on Saturday.
Sunday paper. Great Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
Which I had him on the subway.
It's an old blues song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Sunday paper on Saturday night.
Oh, really?
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing there too was Lloyd's Bakery, and
oh God, yeah.
Just the white bread alone, it was like cake, Just like eat the whole thing on the way home.
I could see why people would get chubby, but because everything was centered around a bar life too.
Yeah,
it was. If there's 6 bars and 4 Italian restaurants on a 1 block period of area,
it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. You're gonna get fat. You're gonna, you're gonna eat a lot of pizza and meatballs and have a lot of beer. But the other thing is that one of the things that struck me, I hadn't been there in a while, and I went back for a funeral. A lot of funny stories around that funeral, though it's not the best subject, but. I went to an ex-girlfriend's father's funeral, right?
Okay.
And I hadn't been there for about 5 or 6 years. And I went back and did the crawl. And the thing about you could live your entire life on that one expanse between Flatlands Avenue and Quentin Road on Flatbush Avenue. You could literally live your entire life on that. So, which today people would be freaked out, but at 13 or 14, you could sit in the Night Owl bar and get loaded.
Night Owl for
you can get loaded for when you're 13, 14. So that was up on the upper.
You had to start out at Gallagher's first.
No, you started at Night Owls, then you went to Gallagher's.
Okay,
and the guy was physically incapable of making drinks, so all he had was butt nips. Tell him how to order. You got to have butt nips. What do you want? I was like, can I have a Heineken? But Ned,
well, we could spend an entire podcast on the bars in that neighborhood.
Yes,
there were. Yeah, well, we both went to the same high school. I was 3 years older than you, and my brother.
And you still are.
I still am. Yeah, that's right. You're never going to catch up to me. So, it was a funny thing in Nazareth, which is where we went to high school. It was a Catholic boys' school, and Monday morning it would spread like wildfire. Which bar in the neighborhood was not carding, and where you could get? And there was one place, it was on Nostrand and Farragut. I think it was called Waters.
Oh, yeah.
And it looked like an old, cocktail lounge where they hadn't updated the decor since like the 1930s.
Yeah.
But like they were serving like 14-year-olds.
And it was like a 90-year-old.
Yeah.
Mr. Waters serving the drinks.
And he would come out and adjust the thermostat every once in a while. And,
it was 25-cent tap beer.
I mean, how could you go wrong? But, there were like 14-year-old kids drinking.
He didn't give it.
I mean, by today's standards, it's insane.
Well, that's what I was saying. If you go down that particular block, you'd start at Night Owl 14. Then you go to the next bar, which was Gallagher's, which was, just this guy couldn't serve anything but nips, and he was alcoholic, and he would get drunk and fall asleep on the pool table. And that was a regular occurrence.
That was Cuckoo's Nest?
No, then you went to Cuckoo's Nest. Now at Gallagher's, you're probably around between 15 and 22.
Right.
Then you go to Cuckoo's Nest, which is everybody's old testosterone filled, and that was the bucket of blood.
Got a blood,
right? That place had fights, and all it was about a bunch of guys with small dicks having fight, right? All dumb guys having fights, right? And so I kind of avoided that. I'm really well endowed, so I wasn't allowed in.
Right. Whatever.
But anyway,
I know you went. It's penis reduction.
Right. Okay. So we went in. You go into the Cuckoo's Nest, and he had a full service bar, but it was just really a what do they call that today? A sausage festival. A bunch of guys, right? Then you walk diagonally across over to Nell Flaherty's. Now Nell Flaherty's was upscale Irish pub food, shepherd's pie, stuff like that.
That wasn't Nana Daly.
Oh, Nana Daly's. See, my memory is perfect. That's right. Nana Daly's. You go to Nana Daly's, and you spend pretty much. And you bring your family there, like the old traditional Irish pubs in Ireland, and you'd be there from the age of, let's say, 25 to 50. right? 55, right? Now your kids are out of the house. You're drawing your pension. You're on a fixed income. You're drawing your pension. You're on a fixed income. You ended up in Clifford's. Clifford's was the quintessential old man bar with sort of the white and black tile on the ground, you know.
Right.
And the place the dust wasn't on purpose. The dust was there because they never cleaned it. So you spent the rest of your life there. And that was like 50 to 80 or wherever you croaked. And then right next to that was McManus's, the funeral home.
Right.
So you end up at the funeral home. So you can literally do your entire existence around that circle.
I mean, there were places that I never ventured into, but, you know, the names were hilarious, like Frank and Edna's. Do you remember that one?
I went to Frank and Edna's. My father liked it.
Didn't all the Nazareth teachers hang out?
Yeah.
Back to that.
I'd say a couple of them drunk.
My name that used to crack me up was Liz and Richards, by the way. That was
Liz and Richards. Do you remember that?
Yeah, what about the Moonbeam Fixed Moonbeam
Fixed Moonbeam Wilderness? Yeah. This is what I hope the listeners, I'd like to point out that this is a 2-block. It's a 2-block expanse, and it's got like 10 bars, and it had 4 or 5 pizza parlors. You know,
well, you had to eat something to absorb all that alcohol.
It had Frank's, Apollo's, Lenny and John's, which is still there and is still kind of relatively famous. And I forget the 4th one, but they had pizza parlors all up and down, you know. And now it's just a bunch of carpet remnant stores. No, it's like horrible. It's like good.
Yeah.
So for me, it was. I had fun. I wish I knew what I do now, you know, because there was a couple of girls that I didn't quite seal the deal with. I'm a happily married man for 30-something years.
Of course.
But, you know, a couple of, we spent so much time in that, you know, 2-block period of time area. And within that particular area could be some of the most dumbest human beings the planet has ever. There's also a lot of wonderful people who are smart. And I say this with love and empathy. You know, someone could call me a dumb human being, but I remember, an enormous amount of physical altercations. People and nobody was getting killed, right? Not in that particular area. It was more like fist fights. And, you know, we had a good friend that was in like a gangland warfare experience over there where he was constantly being surrounded and beaten up. And a lot of insane incidents happened there. And suffice to say, it could be quite a volatile, gritty, intense experience. So with every one of us, even the most pacifistic of us, would probably say that there was a lot of periods of violence.
So, yeah, in the midst of all this, keep in mind, I was taking piano lessons. Yeah. And, you know, look, I knew about 100 different routes to the piano teacher's home, you know, these things.
Well, while you're taking piano lessons.
Perfect recipe for getting beaten up, you know.
I was going to Sunnydale getting cigarettes, a little letter from my mother, right? Get her cigarettes and milk, and I would keep the change, and then I would reach, my dad would always lose change into the seat, and I'd get all the change, and I would compile it all, and I would go buy myself 50 ounce of Old English.
That's really, I mean, I get carded if I want to buy, I don't buy cigarettes for myself anymore. I haven't smoked in decades, but I mean, now, you know, you buy cigarettes, you have to show your proof of age, you know.
It's like, it's a filthy habit, I'm telling you.
Exactly, yeah, you know, but back then I remember I used to buy cigarettes from my aunt and my brothers and sisters all the time, you know.
Well, I had to get a note, and I would do it with I would go up to the Sunnydale on Nourishing Avenue and Avenue M, I believe, and I would present the note to the clerk, and he'd give me the cigarettes. And
six-pack of
Valentine. I used to get it all and bring it back to my dad.
Yes.
And I remember one time kicking the can while I'm carrying the 2 bags of milk and whatever the hell, all the crap we were eating. And I'm carrying it back, and I kicked the can into a gang of bad people.
Oh boy!
And on that note, what we'll do is we'll close this particular episode down, and we'll see you on the next episode, which will be a little bit more in depth about our high school experiences in Brooklyn, New York. And thank you for joining, and I hope you found this enjoyable. I'm sure you did too, Bill.
Shalom.
Shalom. Take care, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Just Sliding Away, written, produced, and performed by William Turley.